Today with us in the studio is Mrs. Victoria O'Reilly, a public analyst and executive director of Spaces for Change. Welcome to Society, Mrs. Victoria.
Thank you for having me.
The National Commission for the Prohibition of Hate Speech Bill has continued to generate so much outcry and condemnation in the public space. Do you really think there's a need for this bill in the country?
The bill, first of all, I work for a research organization, so we're looking at it from the policy angle and the social goal that the proposed bill is coming to address. So the two questions that arise is, number one, is the bill necessary? Number two, what are the social problems that it's going to address? And number three, is it an effective response to those problems? So starting from the first is that the bill is, the objective of the bill is to promote national cohesion, prevent unfair discrimination that is on the basis of ethnic differences. Are we having ethnic tensions? Are we having unfair advantages and discrimination on the basis of ethnic differences? I think that is correct. And what are examples? For instance, in the southeastern part of the country, there are cries about people from that region crying about being marginalized, and in the northern part of the country, there are lots of tensions, either between Fulanis and the Barons, on southern Kaduna as well. There are lots of ethnic tensions. So the question is the setting up of a commission an effective response to those type of tensions happening in different parts of the country? I think the opera is really about, first of all, the functionality and the purpose of that bill and the provisions of that bill. From our analysis, it looks like there are already existing legal provisions, statutes, and mechanisms already on the ground that addresses even those issues that have the potential to address them more effectively than the provisions of that bill.
The bill itself has been described as the one that was meant to save the freedom of speech of Nigerians. Do you agree with this school of thought?
Yeah, there are implications on the freedom of speech because it makes a lot of provisions and uses a lot of terminologies that did not give any direction as to what it means. And without giving a clear, precise definition, it is of course subject to abuse. So that potential for abuse is what Nigerians are concerned about. It talks about hate speech, for instance. It doesn't define what hate speech means. It doesn't define the parameters. What really is unfair? What really is unfair discrimination on the basis of ethnic differences? It doesn't make a lot of important clarifications, and considering the climate and atmosphere of fear and insecurity in the country, there is a potential to use those provisions to stifle, freedom of speech. And that is a very legitimate concern. And again, some of the penalties outlined for the different categories, some of those offenses are already taken care of by the law. Whether there is one that's called racial or ethnic contempt, whether it is harassment, whether it is hate speech itself. All of those things are just words that are put together without really telling us what those words mean. And with that, framing any statute in that type of language, of course, is always very concerning. And I think the concerns of Nigerians are very legitimate.
Talking about the punishments, there is one of the highest punishment, there is the death penalty, which the sponsor of the bill, Sabi Abdullah, has just said that will be removed. Do you think removing the death penalty is enough to let this bill go?
I don't think the problem is just the death penalty. The death penalty is where the hate speech has resulted in the death of a person. Then I think the maximum punishment is actually life imprisonment. But if your hate speech has resulted in the death of a person, then the punishment is removing. That is not the problem. If you look at existing laws, like you have the penal code, We have not even let the penal code. Let's start from the Constitution. Section 42 is very, very clear and precise on discrimination on any basis: ethnicity, gender, sex, religion, age, the circumstances of your birth. Any form of discrimination is already outlawed by Section 42 of the Constitution. Apart from the Constitution, we'll have the Criminal Code that has already provided for a lot of the offenses: seditious publications, defamation, libel. All of those things have been categorically. Also, there's something under the Penal Code. Then, what about the Cybercrimes Act that already makes very robust provisions and mechanisms in place? Then the commission itself that is about to be established, there are lots of federal entities performing those functions. So there are two questions that arise from that bill. Is it saying that existing entities, let me give an example, the National Human Rights Commission, for instance, that the roles of the National Human Rights Commission were just replicated in that agency? Is that bill saying that National Human Rights Commission has been ineffective? If it says it's ineffective, then it needs to say so. Then the question is forming another commission the response to the inadequacies in the National Human Rights Commission? Those are the questions, the policy questions that will, at the point of public hearing, be taken forward to the National Assembly to answer some of those questions.
Even before public hearing, people have been calling for the withdrawal of the bill. One of the reasons is that it is a replica of a similar bill that was signed in Singapore in 2019. Do you think importing a bill to accept?
The truth is that a lot of copycatism is happening around the world. The NGO bill that was introduced in 2016 by the late senator, it was brought in from Sierra Leone. It was copied verbatim from Sierra Leone. And in many countries of the world, governments are busy importing, copycatting restrictive legislations like the hate speech bill, the social media bills. So it's not peculiar to Nigeria. That's just the point I'm trying to make. So that it came from Singapore is not enough to remodel or adapt it to local context, maybe if they need be. But just that the provisions are framed in a way that inflict more restrictions on the rights, civil liberties of citizens than protects the rights of citizens. I think that has been some of the concerns and feedback we have received from quite a number of stakeholders.
Talking about the bill now, Lai Mohammed, Minister of Information and Culture, said no matter what the people say, no matter what the condemnation the bill is receiving, the social media bill now, that it will be assented to by the president. That gives confidence in him that the bill would scale the National Assembly and the president would definitely assent the bill. Do you think this does not call to the credibility of the legislature and the executive? We used to just say the legislature is a rubber stamp legislature.
Well, Lai Mohammed is a citizen, also having his own right to free speech, which by our advocacy, that right should not be stifled. I want to believe he's just making an opinion, he's just expressing himself, because he's not a lawmaker. The responsibility for lawmaking is entrusted on the legislature. Even the legislature, one person, one lawmaker alone cannot by himself say this bill will pass. These are bills that require certain processes. Bills go through certain processes. It's go to second read, it's going to go to the committee, it's going to go to public hearing, they're going to have deliberations, they're going to have votes on the bill. So it's not a statement that one person can make conclusively.
But looking at the speed at which this bill is going, it recently scaled the second reading. Does that mean anything?
Yes, that the speed is very concerning, but the constitutional procedures allow citizens, gives you the space to engage. I believe at the public hearing, a lot of the comments, a lot of the concerns a lot of the reactions to the bill, Nigerians will have a chance to get to the parliament to make sure that those concerns are, shared with their lawmakers. And I think there is also this thing that has been passing around on WhatsApp, the list of lawmakers and their telephone numbers. It's been passed around on the internet, asking or requiring people to have some kind of interaction with their lawmakers. So these are all opportunities for engagement. So it does not mean that certainly that the bill will pass. But I think Nigerians, their fears are well founded. They are looking at the body language and of the, they're looking at the polity, they're looking at trends that have been happening, particularly the arrest of a number of bloggers, the imprisonment, the trial, the prosecution of based on very flimsy reasons. So there are reasons for people to think that this is a continuing, this is just going to continue from the trend that they've been observing since 2015, basically.
Talking about fake news itself, if passed, will this bill bring curb fake news in the country? Do you think it has the capacity to curb fake news?
Well, our response, having studied the cybercrime legislation, I think that this bill is just a way of throwing money at a problem. Because if you look at the cybercrime bill, Cybercrime Act of 2015, if you look specifically at section 22, 24, 26 of the Cybercrime Act, they make specific and very robust provisions addressing all of the issues, not some, all of the issues raised in the social media. What are the issues of social media? So they want to stop the transmission of fake, false statements. They want to block access providers, particularly in certain locations where the false statements are emanating from. They want to control, suppress the use of parody accounts, particularly directed at a political end. All of those provisions are in the Cybercrime Act. The Cybercrime Act also set up some mechanisms. They have the Cybercrime Advisory Council. They have what they call the CRT, which is the Computer Emergency Response Team. Nobody is talking about all of these existing mechanisms. If those mechanisms are having gaps or unable to meet some of their statutory responsibilities. So the question is that, do you cure that inadequacy through the vehicle of another legislation?
So are you saying this bill should just be scrapped while you work on existing laws?
There is, from analysis of existing laws affecting cybercrimes, affecting the flow of information, particularly on the internet, I think that there is an opportunity for the government to look at existing legal framework and scale up the implementation, increase official capacity to implement existing legal standards. That is what Nigeria needs at the moment, not duplicity, because duplicity is going to create its own problems. We are seeing that also in anti-corruption, where you have the EFCC, you have the ICPC, you have the SCUMO, you have the NFIU, you have, all of these agencies have overlapping regulatory function, and coordination has become a problem. So if you want to replicate that coordination challenge in every facet of the economy, then we are just probably creating more challenges for the country. So there are so many statements, just with this, like with the social media bill, there are so many statements that are so used so broadly and leave a lot of gaps for opportunities for abuse. For instance, it says statements affecting public health, statements affecting public safety, public finance, or Nigeria's relationship with other countries, or influencing the outcome of an election in any office in a general election. These wordings are very concerning. What is concerning is that is to become almost impossible to discuss anything. During the 2015 election, we saw citizens come use the internet to express their choices, make democratic choices for or against any democratic, any of the political contenders. And I think it's consistent with free expression to say, I will vote for Mr. A because of all over the world, whether it's in the United States, people say, I'll vote for Trump, I'll vote for Bloomberg, I'll vote for, in the UK, everywhere, in every, said democratic environment, people have the right to publicly, take sides with anyone. So, would you say that by making that statement, you are influencing the outcome of an election? Or is this law going to outlaw citizens from making any political statements? That is a very concerning aspect of the legislation. There is also the aspect where almost all the governors, 36 governors, you notice that the first thing they appoint is this SA on social media. What does that person do? It's towards a political end. Hello? All of the SAs, the president himself, how many SAs on social media does he have? I know there is one guy from the north, there is one that is from the southwest, then there is also Garuba, Shehu, and Femi Adesina. They are constantly on the internet. They are doing that for a political end. Are you by this law saying that all of those offices are unlawful because they are paid from the state treasury to transmit information that serves a political end? And this is replicated across the 36 states. Or is the bill saying that if it's done by the government, it's okay, it's done by the citizens, it's unlawful? These are some of the questions that our analysis we are raising, and it's not just enough to raise them. Like I told you that during the public hearing, Nigerians, of course, us as well, will have a chance to engage our parliamentarians and ask them some of these questions.
So before the public hearing, would you say Nigeria should keep on with the condemnation of the bill online or social media?
Whatever spaces that they have to express themselves, in a very responsible, constructive manner and an informed manner. People need a lot of information. Last week I was in the market and I was talking to some traders were asking me because they knew I was a lawyer. They knew I'm a lawyer, sorry, and they were not asking, please, a lawyer, we have heard about a hate speech bill. And their understanding was that nobody is ever allowed to say anything again to anybody, even on the road, about the government. They were asking me, is that true? And if you see the way whoever explained it to them, it was explained in ways that were actually beyond the purview of the legislation. So there's a lot of information and misinformation going on. So this is an opportunity for people to ask questions, seek the right information, and continue to ask, drum up, support for and against the bill, until that time when we'll have a final opportunity to engage the Parliament and table these issues in the way that the Constitution requires.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Victoria, for coming on here today.